You know, sometimes life has a cruel way of teaching you who you really are to the people you love most. I didn't realize it until the very morning of my son's wedding. My phone wouldn't stop ringing. I could almost hear the panic in Marcus's voice, even through the vibrations on my nightstand. "Mom, where are you?" "The buffet's gone, the kids are running wild, please just tell me you're coming." I leaned back against the soft spa lounge chair, the faint scent of lavender oils around me, and I smiled, not out of spite, but out of peace. For 72 years, I had been the dependable one, the woman who always showed up, who always gave, who always carried the load when no one else wanted to. But that morning, for the first time in decades, I decided not to. And that decision changed everything. If you've ever felt like your family sees you more as a resource than a person, you'll understand this story. Stay with me, because what happened at my son's wedding is a lesson I never thought I'd be the one to teach. My name is Charlotte Fitzgerald. Most people call me Miss Charlotte, though to my grandchildren, I'm just Grandma. I've lived a long life full of sacrifice and hard work. I buried my husband after 30 years of marriage, raised my only son alone, and built a reputation in my town as the woman you could call if you needed a helping hand. I never thought much about it. Helping was second nature to me, but help, when taken for granted, becomes something else entirely. It all began a week before the wedding. The house smelled of flour and butter that Tuesday afternoon as I sat at the kitchen table, scribbling numbers onto my shopping list. 3 pounds of salmon, 25 pounds of chicken, trays of vegetables, bowls of pasta salad. I had it all planned. $3,000 of my retirement savings were set aside just for Marcus's big day. A buffet cooked with my hands, decorated with my flowers, presented with my love. I was proud, maybe even a little giddy, imagining the guests praising my son's wedding as the most beautiful, heartfelt celebration they'd ever attended. Outside on the patio, I heard voices. At first, I ignored them. Marcus was on the phone for work, his baritone murmurs drifting in and out. And Tiffany, his fiancée, soon to be my daughter-in-law, was chatting with her sister Audrey, who had come in from out of town. Their laughter carried through the open window. I kept writing, calculating how many pies I'd need if each guest wanted a slice. Then I heard my name. You know how your heart freezes when someone speaks about you in a tone you don't expect? That's what happened. I slid closer to the window, staying behind the curtain. "Look, Audrey, everything's perfectly organized for the kids," Tiffany said, her voice sweet as honey. "Marcus's mom is going to watch them during the whole party. 15 kids, from toddlers to teenagers, but she's used to it. This way, the adults can enjoy themselves without interruptions." Audrey laughed. "That's brilliant, sis. The old lady's going to babysit while you all dance and drink. Perfect. No screaming brats ruining the photos." My hand tightened around the pencil. "Old lady, babysit?" Tiffany kept talking, but her tone had shifted, colder than the smile she usually showed me. "I told Marcus his mom is great with kids and loves it. She won't even realize we're using her. It's like having a free nanny for the whole night. And since she'll be busy, she won't have time to bother us or insert herself into conversations. Honestly, it works out for everyone," Audrey cackled. "We didn't even ask her?" "That's gold," and Tiffany laughed too. "Of course we didn't. Why would we? Marcus just mentioned kids would be there, and she volunteered to help with anything. She's perfect, experienced, willing, and free." The pencil snapped in my hand. I didn't even notice until I looked down and saw graphite streaking across my palm. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. I had been standing there, covered in flour and sugar from baking cookies for their rehearsal dinner, giving every ounce of my energy to make this wedding perfect. And here they were mocking me, not as a beloved mother or future in-law, but as a resource, a servant, a free nanny. They laughed again. Tiffany's voice rose, sharp and cruel in its cheerfulness. "And since she'll be running after kids, she won't eat much of the buffet she's preparing. More food for the important guests." My knees weakened. I pressed against the counter to keep from falling. 72 years of my life. Raising Marcus, burying his father, surviving storms he couldn't imagine. And now I was a convenience. Nothing more. When Marcus came back onto the patio, I wiped my hands on my apron and retreated upstairs before they noticed me. From the window of my bedroom, I stared at the family photos lined on my nightstand. Marcus's graduation, our vacations, birthdays where I had baked cakes shaped like dinosaurs or cars. Memories of devotion. Memories of love. how quickly love can turn into obligation in someone else's eyes. For days, I smiled. I played along. When Tiffany came over and said, "Miss Charlotte, don't stress too much," I nodded. When Marcus called to confirm the buffet, I said everything was perfect. But inside me, a fire burned hotter than it had in years. I wasn't going to let them treat me like a servant. Not anymore. By Wednesday, I had made my decision. I picked up the phone and called Loretta, my dearest friend of 40 years. "If you've ever had a friend who knows your soul, you'll understand," she answered on the second ring. "Lo, I need you," I said, my voice trembling with both fury and resolve. What happened? So I told her. Every word. The laughter, the insults, the plan to use me as free labor. Loretta's voice shook. "That girl is a snake. Charlotte, after everything you've done, after all the money you've spent." "She has some nerve, I know," I said. "But I have a plan, and I need your help." "Tell me." As I explained, Loretta began to clap on the other end of the line. "Oh, Charlotte, this is brilliant. They won't see it coming. Count me in." The first step was easy. On Thursday morning, I began canceling. The caterers I'd hired? Gone. The florist? Canceled. The rental company for extra tables and linens? Called them up, told them I wouldn't need the order. There were penalties, sure, but nothing compared to what I had already spent. By noon, everything I had promised was off the table. The house grew quiet as the reality of what I was doing sank in. For the first time in months, I wasn't rushing between lists, ovens, and arrangements. I was reclaiming my time, my dignity. Friday night, I packed a small suitcase. A coral dress I loved but hadn't worn in years. My medications. A book. Marcus called me, cheerful, trusting. "Mom, how's everything looking? Need me to come help?" "No, son," I replied calmly. "Everything is perfect. Tomorrow will be wonderful," he laughed. "You're the best, Mom. Tiffany and I don't know how to thank you enough." "You don't need to thank me," I whispered. "Tomorrow will be exactly what you planned." That night, I wrote the letter. I left it on the kitchen table, where Marcus always sat when he visited. My words were steady, my pen firm. "Dear Marcus, by the time you read this, I will be somewhere else. For months, I worked to make your wedding perfect. But yesterday, I learned that my real role was not as a guest, but as a free nanny for 15 children. Since no one asked me, I've decided not to accept that job. I have canceled the buffet, the flowers, and the decorations. I suggest you find another solution. I will return Sunday evening. With love, but with dignity. Mom." When I finished, I felt lighter. Saturday morning, before the sun rose, I put on my coral dress and curled my hair. Loretta arrived at 7 sharp, her car packed and her grin mischievous. "Ready, Charlotte?" "More than ready," I said. 72 years, and I've never done something just for myself. Until today. We drove toward the spa, 2 hours outside the city. As the miles rolled by, so did the weight on my shoulders. Behind me, in that quiet house, sat a letter that would change everything, and ahead of me, in that spa by the lake, waited freedom I had never dared to claim. But of course, freedom always comes at a cost. Because when my phone began to buzz that afternoon with 17 missed calls, 8 frantic messages, and Marcus's desperate voice pleading into my voicemail, I knew the storm I had unleashed was only just beginning. The spa was everything my soul had been craving without even realizing it. Soft instrumental music drifted through the air like a lullaby. A young woman with a kind smile draped a warm robe around my shoulders, and the scent of eucalyptus wrapped me in peace. For the first time in years, my hands were not kneading dough or folding laundry. They were still, resting on my lap as another woman took them gently and began massaging away decades of calluses. I sank into that chair, the steam from a nearby sauna misting against the glass, and I let myself breathe. I should have been worrying about the wedding, about Marcus, about Tiffany's reaction, but instead I chose stillness. I chose Charlotte. My phone buzzed on the counter. At first I ignored it. Then it buzzed again, and again, a relentless vibration like a hive of angry bees. When I finally reached for it, the screen nearly blinded me with missed calls. Marcus, Tiffany, my niece, even my church friend Ruth. Voicemails stacked one after another. The first one was Marcus, his voice tight with panic. "Mom, where are you? The caterer said you canceled. The florist said the same thing. Please tell me this is a mistake. We need you. The kids are already running wild. Tiffany's furious. Please, Mom, call me back. The next was Tiffany, her voice cracking into a shrill edge. Charlotte, this is not funny. Do you realize how irresponsible this is? Everyone is looking at me like I'm crazy. Where's the food? Where are the decorations? What do you mean you're not here? We can't do this without you. I leaned back in the chair, almost chuckling. Imagine that. They couldn't do it without me. Yet I had been nothing more than a pawn in their plan. Another voicemail, this time from Audrey, the sister who had laughed at me days before. Miss Charlotte, please, can we talk? Tiffany didn't mean what she said. You know how brides get under pressure. We really, really need you right now. Oh, the sudden sweetness in her voice. Funny how need changes tone. Loretta, sitting beside me with cucumbers over her eyes, cracked one open and smirked. Don't you dare answer, Charlotte. Let them sweat. They need to learn, I nodded. She was right. For 72 years, I had been at everyone's beck and call. That ended today. Still, as I closed my eyes and tried to relax, guilt trickled in. Marcus was my son, my only child. He hadn't said those cruel words. Tiffany had. Should I punish him for her arrogance? But then I remembered. He had stood there that afternoon on the patio. He hadn't defended me. He hadn't said, "No, my mother is a guest, not a babysitter." He had let Tiffany's plan stand. Silence is complicity, isn't it? The massage ended. We slipped into fluffy robes and padded out to the garden, where sunlight glittered off the lake like diamonds. For lunch, we were served roasted salmon with lemon butter, crisp asparagus, and a glass of chilled white wine. I laughed as Loretta raised her glass. "To freedom," she said. "To freedom," I echoed, though a pang in my chest reminded me that freedom sometimes comes with loneliness. By mid-afternoon, the calls grew frantic. Marcus again. "Mom, Tiffany's having a breakdown. The guests are arriving and there's nothing here. No food, no flowers. Everyone keeps asking where you are. Please, Mom, I'm begging you. Don't do this. Come back." I put the phone face down on the table. "Charlotte," Loretta said softly. "Do you want to hear him out?" I stared at the screen. My fingers itched to call him back, to soothe him, to fix everything like I always did. But then I remembered Tiffany's laughter. The old lady's going to babysit. More food for the important guests. My lips pressed into a firm line. "No, Lo, not this time." Back at the wedding, chaos reigned. Later, Marcus would tell me what happened, but that afternoon, I imagined it vividly, the guests whispering, children darting under tables, Tiffany in her white gown, red-faced and screeching at the staff. And then, in that very moment, my phone buzzed with a video call request. It was Marcus. Against my better judgment, I answered. His face appeared, flushed, sweat on his brow. Behind him, I saw the reception hall. Bare tables, children running wild, Tiffany clutching her head as relatives tried to calm her. "Mom!" Marcus cried. "Please, just tell me where you are. We can come get you. We'll fix this." I held the phone steady, my voice calm. "Marcus, I told you everything in the letter." "What letter?" "The one on the kitchen table," he groaned. "Mom, I didn't see any letter. Tiffany and we didn't mean for you to feel unappreciated. Please, just come. The kids are everywhere, and Tiffany..." Behind him, Tiffany screamed, "She ruined my wedding. She's selfish. I cut the call. My hand shook, but my heart felt strangely steady. "Charlotte," Loretta asked gently. I exhaled. "I think I just broke my son's heart." She reached over, squeezing my hand. "No, you just showed him yours." That evening, while they wrestled with their chaos, I sat by the spa's fireplace, sipping tea. The flames flickered, and for once, I wasn't cooking for others, serving others, cleaning after others. I was simply me, but as the hours passed, doubt gnawed at me. What if Marcus never forgave me? What if Tiffany poisoned him against me completely? Was I prepared to lose my only child for the sake of one act of defiance? My phone buzzed again. A message from Marcus. "Mom, please." "I'm sorry. I didn't know. I should have spoken up. Please don't shut me out. I love you." My eyes blurred with tears. Loretta leaned over my shoulder, reading. "He's starting to understand. Or he's just desperate," I whispered. Either way, the power had shifted. For the first time, I wasn't the one begging. Still, as I lay in the spa's soft bed that night, I couldn't sleep. My dreams were filled with Marcus as a little boy, clutching my hand on his first day of school, crying when his father died, laughing when I surprised him with his first bicycle. Could I really stand against him now? At dawn, I woke to another dozen messages. Tiffany's tone had changed. "Miss Charlotte, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have spoken like that. Please, just come back. We'll pay you if that's the issue. Just, please. The wedding is falling apart." I almost laughed at that. Pay me? As if my dignity had a price tag. By the time the sun rose, I knew the day was coming to a breaking point. They had leaned on me all their lives, and for once I had stepped aside. The question was, would Marcus see it as betrayal? Or would he finally recognize me as more than just the help? The answer would come sooner than I expected, because as Loretta and I sat down for breakfast by the lake, a car pulled up outside the spa. And when the door swung open, I nearly dropped my fork. Marcus had come to find me. The crunch of gravel under tires broke the calm serenity of the spa's garden. Loretta and I turned our heads together, and I swear, my heart jumped into my throat when I saw Marcus climb out of that car. He wasn't in his tuxedo. His white shirt was wrinkled, sleeves rolled to his elbows, and his tie hung limp around his neck. His hair was damp with sweat, his eyes red-rimmed and wild. He looked less like a groom and more like a boy who had lost his way. "Charlotte," Loretta whispered, touching my arm. "Are you ready for this?" I didn't answer. My legs moved before my mind caught up, carrying me slowly toward the spa's entrance. Marcus spotted me and froze. For a second, neither of us spoke. Then he took 3 long strides and wrapped his arms around me so tightly I could feel his heart hammering against my chest. "Mom," he gasped, his voice cracking. "Please, please don't do this to me." I stiffened, not because I didn't love him, but because for the first time I wanted him to hear me, not just hug me and assume everything was fine. I put my hands on his shoulders and gently pushed him back. His eyes searched mine desperately, like a drowning man reaching for air. "Marcus," I said evenly, "what are you doing here? Shouldn't you be at your wedding?" He swallowed hard. "There is no wedding without you." A bitter laugh almost escaped my lips. "Oh, there's a wedding. You have a bride, guests, photographers, and 15 children running wild. What you don't have is a babysitter. That's what this is about, isn't it?" His face crumpled. "Mom, no, it's not like that." "It's exactly like that," I interrupted. "I heard Tiffany. I heard Audrey. I know what they said. The old lady's going to babysit. She won't even realize we're using her." Those were their words, Marcus. "And you stood there. You didn't defend me." His mouth opened, then closed. He looked away, shame flickering across his face. I didn't know what to say. I didn't want to start a fight with Tiffany. It was her big day. I felt a sting in my chest. Her big day? And what about my dignity, Marcus? Do I matter less because I'm your mother? Because I'm 72 and not wearing a white gown? He flinched as if I'd struck him. "Mom, I love you." "You know I do." "Love without respect is just a word," I replied quietly. Loretta shifted behind me, her arms crossed, ready to step in if my knees gave out. But I stayed rooted. This was my moment, and Marcus had to hear me out. "Do you know what I did for you?" I asked, my voice trembling but strong. 30 years of sacrifice. I buried your father and never remarried because I wanted you to feel secure. I worked 2 jobs, cooked every meal, saved every penny for your education. And now, in the twilight of my life, all I am to you and your bride is free childcare and free catering. Do you have any idea what that feels like? Tears filled his eyes. "Mom, I didn't mean for it to be like that." "But it is," I said sharply. "You let it happen." For a long moment, silence stretched between us. The breeze rustled the spa's wind chimes, a delicate sound that contrasted with the heavy truth between mother and son. Finally, Marcus whispered, "You're right." I blinked. I hadn't expected that. "You're right," he said again, his voice breaking. "I let Tiffany treat you that way. I was a coward. I didn't stand up for you, and I should have. I should have made sure you felt honored, not used." My throat tightened. "Mom, I came here because I can't lose you over this. Please, please come back with me. I don't care about the food or the decorations. I just want you there, sitting as my mother." as my guest of honor. That's all I want." I searched his face. For the first time in years, I saw the little boy who had clung to my skirts when thunderstorms rattled the windows. Vulnerable, honest, desperate for my love. But before I could answer, another car screeched into the driveway. The door flew open, and Tiffany stormed out in her wedding gown, veil askew, mascara streaked down her cheeks. She looked like a vision of chaos, half princess, half fury. "Marcus," she shrieked, stomping toward us. "What on earth are you doing here? The guests are waiting. The children are destroying everything. And you're chasing after your mother?" Marcus turned to her, his jaw set. "Yes, Tiffany. I'm chasing after my mother, because she matters." Her mouth fell open. "Matters? She abandoned us on our wedding day. She sabotaged everything." I straightened my shoulders. "No, Tiffany. I didn't sabotage anything. I simply refused to be used." "There's a difference." Tiffany's eyes blazed. "You selfish old woman, do you know how humiliated I am right now? Everyone's whispering, wondering where the food is, where the decorations are, where you are. You've ruined my perfect day." Loretta stepped forward then, her voice cool and sharp as a blade. "Sweetheart, you ruined your own day when you decided to treat a 72-year-old woman like hired help instead of family." "Don't you dare pin this on Charlotte," Tiffany gasped, clutching her chest as if struck. "Marcus, are you going to let her talk to me like that?" Marcus looked between us, his face pale. And then, with a steadiness that surprised even me, he said, "Yes, because she's right." Tiffany staggered back as though the ground had shifted beneath her. "You're choosing her over me? On our wedding day?" "No," Marcus said firmly. "I'm choosing respect over arrogance. If we're going to have a marriage, Tiffany, it has to be built on honor, not on mocking and using the people I love." I inhaled sharply. My son, my timid, quiet Marcus, had finally found his voice. But Tiffany wasn't about to surrender. Her eyes narrowed, venom dripping from every word. "You'll regret this, Marcus. If she walks back into that wedding, I won't." The threat hung in the air like a storm cloud. Marcus turned to me, torn. His love for Tiffany was real. I could see it in his trembling hands, in the way his eyes darted between us. But so was his love for me. And now he was being forced to choose. I laid a gentle hand on his arm. "Marcus, you don't have to choose between us. You just have to choose what kind of man you want to be." He looked at me, then at Tiffany. His lips parted, but before he could answer, Tiffany let out a furious sob and spun on her heel, storming back to the car. Gravel flew as she sped away, her veil fluttering out the window like a white flag turned to ash. The silence that followed was deafening. Marcus sank onto the spa's steps, burying his face in his hands. "She's gone," he whispered. "What have I done?" I sat beside him, laying my arm around his shoulders. "What you should have done long ago. You stood up. Maybe not soon enough, but you stood up." He wept quietly, his tears soaking into my dress, and I held him, torn between pride and sorrow. Because while I had won back my dignity, my son had just lost his bride. And deep down, I knew the consequences of that choice were only beginning. Marcus sat hunched over on the spa steps, his face buried in his hands, as if the weight of the whole world had just dropped onto his shoulders. His broad frame, once so strong and confident, seemed to shrink before my very eyes. I rested my hand lightly on his back, feeling the tremor of his breath as he tried to hold back sobs. For a long time, neither of us spoke. The birds sang above us in the trees. The gentle waves of the lake lapped at the shore. It was a cruel contrast, nature carrying on serenely while my son's future had just been ripped apart. Finally, he lifted his head, eyes swollen and red. "She's gone, Mom. Tiffany's really gone. What am I supposed to do now?" I looked into his face, my own heart heavy. "Marcus, you're supposed to live with honor. That's all any man can do." He shook his head, clutching at his hair. "But I love her. For all her flaws, for everything she said. I still love her. We had a life planned, a family. Now what's left?" Loretta stepped closer, her arms folded, her voice firm. "What's left is the truth, Marcus. You saw her true colors. You saw what she thought of your mother. Marriage is hard enough when there's love and respect. Without those, it's a slow poison. Better to lose her now than to live 30 years under that weight. Marcus looked at Loretta, then back at me. Was I wrong to bring her into our lives? Did I fail you? I sighed, my hand squeezing his. Love isn't a failure, son. Trusting the wrong person isn't a crime. It's a lesson. What matters is what you do after the lesson. He closed his eyes, tears sliding silently down his cheeks. Just then, his phone buzzed again. He looked at it and groaned. It's Tiffany's mother. Answer it, I said softly. But prepare yourself. He swiped the screen and held it to his ear. Almost immediately, a shrill voice exploded through the speaker. Marcus, what have you done to my daughter? She's hysterical. She says you humiliated her, abandoned her at the wedding venue, and sided with that old woman against her. Do you have any idea how this looks? Our family is in shambles because of you. Marcus closed his eyes, gripping the phone tightly. Mrs. Hensley, please. It wasn't like that. Oh, it was like that, she snapped. Charlotte has always been jealous of Tiffany. Everyone knows it. And you... Her voice rose to a screech. You've let your mother sabotage everything. My family spent thousands on this wedding. Our friends and relatives are sitting in a hall with no food, no flowers, no bride. Do you realize the humiliation we've endured? You should be ashamed. The words stung even me, though they weren't aimed directly at me. Marcus's hands trembled. I didn't abandon Tiffany. She left. She left because of your mother, Mrs. Hensley spat. If you don't cut ties with her immediately, Marcus, Tiffany will never come back to you. Mark my words, my chest tightened. The silence that followed her ultimatum was suffocating. Marcus's eyes flicked to mine, torn between two worlds. Finally, he whispered, Mrs. Hensley, with all due respect, my mother is not the problem. The problem is the way your daughter treats her. If Tiffany can't respect my mother, then maybe she's not the woman I thought she was. The line went dead. Marcus dropped the phone into his lap, his shoulders slumping. That's it. They're done with me. I sat beside him, pulling him close. No, son, they're done controlling you. There's a difference. He leaned against me like he had when he was a child, exhausted, broken. My heart ached for him, but a part of me also swelled with pride. He was finally learning to stand, even if it cost him everything. The hours dragged on. Marcus stayed with us at the spa, refusing to go back to the chaos of the wedding hall. I bought him dinner, fed him soup like he was still my little boy, and watched as the color slowly returned to his face. He barely touched the food, though, his mind far away. As evening fell, he finally spoke again. Mom, do you think people will ever forgive me? Her family? The guests? I shook my head gently. Forgiveness isn't something you earn from strangers, Marcus. It's something you live into. The people who truly love you will come around. The ones who don't, they were never yours to begin with. His eyes glistened. And you? Do you forgive me? My throat tightened. I touched his cheek, forcing him to look at me. Marcus, I already have. You made a mistake, but you've owned it. That's all I ever wanted from you. My love for you has never been in question. His lip trembled, and then he folded into my arms once more. But even as we sat there, my phone buzzed again. This time it wasn't Tiffany or her family. It was one of the guests from church, a woman named Diane. I almost didn't answer, but something told me to. Miss Charlotte, Diane's voice came through, filled with both sympathy and judgment. I don't know what happened today, but people are talking. They say you abandoned the wedding and ruined everything. They say you embarrassed Marcus in front of everyone. Is that true? I closed my eyes, breathing in slowly. No, Diane. What's true is that I finally stood up for myself. I refuse to be used. If people want to see that as abandonment, that's their choice. But I won't apologize for choosing dignity. There was a pause. Then Diane whispered, almost guiltily, Good for you, Charlotte. Honestly, I wish I had your courage. My daughter treats me like a doormat, too. Maybe I need to learn from you. When I hung up, I felt something shift. Maybe not everyone would judge me harshly. Maybe some would finally understand. Still, I knew the storm wasn't over. Tiffany was not the kind of woman to walk away quietly, and I could almost feel the weight of her wrath building somewhere in the distance, like thunder rolling in on the horizon. That night, as I lay in bed at the spa, Marcus sleeping in the next room, I prayed. I prayed for strength, for wisdom, for healing. And as I whispered those prayers into the quiet dark, I heard my own voice steady, strong. For the first time in decades, I was not afraid of losing people who didn't value me. But the next morning would test that resolve in ways I hadn't imagined. Because when we drove back into town, Tiffany was waiting. And she wasn't alone. She had brought her entire family with her, and the war had only just begun. The air was heavy that morning, as if the sky itself had heard my prayers, and decided to test whether I truly meant them. Marcus and I drove back into town in silence, his hands tight on the steering wheel, his jaw clenched. I could see the storm brewing inside him, and I knew the storm waiting outside wasn't going to make things easier. As we turned onto Maple Avenue, my stomach dropped. Lined up in front of my small house were 3 cars, and standing by the porch, arms crossed, was Tiffany. Beside her stood her mother, her father, and 2 of her brothers, their postures stiff and accusing, like they were ready for a trial. Marcus's hands gripped the wheel tighter. "Mom, stay in the car. I'll handle this." I placed my hand on his arm. "No, son. This isn't just your battle. This is ours." We stepped out together. The moment my feet hit the ground, Tiffany's voice pierced the quiet street. There she is. The woman who destroyed everything. Neighbors peeked out from their curtains, curious about the commotion. Heat rushed to my face, but I stood tall, refusing to be shamed in my own neighborhood. Tiffany's mother stepped forward, her eyes blazing. "Charlotte, how dare you walk out on us yesterday? Do you have any idea the humiliation we suffered?" Guests whispering, "Food untouched, my daughter in tears." Marcus interjected, his voice steady though I could hear the tremor beneath. "Mrs. Hensley, enough." Tiffany wasn't in tears. "She walked out on me. She insulted my mother in front of everyone. That's the truth." Tiffany spun toward him, her hair whipping dramatically. "Oh, please. You're really going to take her side?" "Marcus, she's a bitter old woman who's been poisoning you against me from the start. You think anyone respects her? Everyone laughs behind her back. And now you're throwing away our future because of her?" My heart stung at her words, but I didn't flinch. I looked Tiffany squarely in the eye. "Respect isn't something you demand, Tiffany. It's something you give, and you've never given me any. Not once." Her brothers stepped forward, puffing up their chests. "Look, lady," one of them growled. "Our sister's been humiliated enough. You need to apologize and make this right, or we'll—" Marcus stepped in front of me, his body tense. "Or you'll what? Threaten my mother? Not happening. I won't let you bully her anymore." The standoff hung in the air, neighbors gathering now on porches, whispers spreading like wildfire. Then Tiffany, with tears suddenly welling in her eyes, turned her performance up another notch. "Marcus, please. I loved you. I still love you. But if you don't choose me right now, if you don't tell your mother to back down, we're finished forever." The silence was deafening. Every heartbeat in my chest felt like a drum. I looked at my son, his face pale, torn between the woman he thought he loved and the mother who had raised him. And then he spoke. Slowly, firmly, "Tiffany, if loving you means disrespecting my mother, then I don't want that kind of love. You've shown me who you are. I can't marry someone who sees my family as disposable. We're done." Tiffany's gasp was sharp, her body trembling with rage. "You'll regret this, Marcus. You'll die alone, and so will she." With that, she spun on her heel, her family following like soldiers retreating from a lost battle. Car doors slammed, engines roared, and within moments they were gone, leaving nothing but dust in their wake. Marcus turned to me then, his eyes wet but his shoulders squared. "It's over, Mom. It's really over." I nodded, my own throat thick. "Yes, son, and now it's time to begin again." The days that followed were not easy. Gossip flew through town like wildfire. Some said I was a heartless mother who sabotaged her son's happiness. Others whispered that Tiffany's family had always been difficult, and Marcus had dodged a bullet. At church, I felt eyes on me, some sympathetic, others judgmental, but Marcus stood by me. He told anyone who would listen the truth, that he had chosen self-respect, chosen family, chosen love built on honor rather than appearances. And slowly the tide began to turn. People began to see that maybe, just maybe, I had not destroyed a wedding, but saved a life. One evening, weeks later, Marcus came over with a box in his hands. "Mom," he said quietly, I want you to have this." He set it on the table, and when I opened it, I found the remnants of his wedding plans. Invitations, a guest list, and at the very bottom, a ring. "I can't keep it," he whispered. "It doesn't belong to me anymore." I closed the box gently and reached for his hand. "Then let it be a reminder, Marcus. Not of what you lost, but of what you learned. Someday, when the right woman comes along, you'll know the difference. And until then, you still have me." He smiled through tears, squeezing my hand. "Always, Mom. Always." And that night, as I sat alone in my chair, I felt something I hadn't in years. Peace. I had faced humiliation, conflict, and loss. I had stood up for myself in the face of scorn. And I had kept the love of my son, not by bending to the world's demands, but by standing tall in truth. Life isn't about pleasing everyone. It's about walking in dignity, even if the road gets lonely. And though my path was scarred with pain, I knew I had chosen right, because respect isn't something you win at weddings. It's something you keep in the quiet of your own soul. When the guests are gone, the music fades, and only the truth remains. And in that truth, I finally found freedom.